Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Noor Fatma Wali and I am the tutor of the foundation level at the Rehan School Lahore campus. Today I am going to talk with Maya on the topic conscious, tracing the evolution of awareness. So let's start.
Hey, what's new?
Hello Maya, how are you? Hello Maya, how are you?
I'm doing great. What's on your mind today?
I'm gonna ask some questions. So my first question is, what does the word conscious mean?
It's a big one. In simple terms, it's your awareness of yourself and your surroundings. It's that inner voice and the feeling of actually experiencing life rather than just reacting to it. Does that make sense?
Okay, so where did the term conscious originate?
Let me look that up for you. My search just hit a snag. Want me to try again? Still there?
Yes.
Cool. Let me give that search another shot. Yeah, it comes from the Latin word conscīus, which basically means knowing or aware. It's actually a mix of calm, meaning with, and scire, meaning to know. Back in the day, more about sharing knowledge with someone else, but around the 1600s, it shifted to mean that internal awareness we have now. Pretty wild how the meaning changed, right?
Hmm. Okay, so how has the meaning of conscious evolved throughout the history?
Punctures, just to make sure I'm on the right page. Are you talking about a tire puncture or something else?
How has the meaning of conscious evolved throughout the history?
Ah, conscience. Got it. That's a similar root coming from the Latin conscientia, which just meant with knowledge. It actually started as a way to describe sharing knowledge with others, but over time, especially through religious influence, it shifted into that internal moral compass we use to tell right from wrong. It's kind of a journey from a shared fact to a private judgment.
Okay, so what's the difference between being conscious and unconscious?
It's mostly about whether the lights are on, so to speak. Being conscious means you're awake and aware of what's happening around you. Unconscious is when that awareness is gone, like when you're in a deep sleep or knocked out. One is being in the driver's seat. The other is just being a passenger while the car is on autopilot.
Okay, so why is consciousness considered a fundamental aspect of the human experience?
Because it's the only way you actually experience anything. Without it, you'd just be a biological machine processing data. Consciousness is what turns a sound into music or a cold breeze into a feeling. It's the difference between a camera recording a sunset and you actually seeing the colors.
Okay, how do scientists define consciousness?
That's the $1 million question. It's tricky because consciousness is subjective, so scientists can't just peek into your head to see what's happening. Instead, they look for neural correlates, basically patterns in brain activity using things like fMRI or EEG scans. They can also use magnetic stimulation to see how the brain responds to a nudge, or just look for subtle behavioral cues like specific eye movements. It's a bit like trying to find a ghost in a machine.
Okay, so what role does awareness play in daily life?
I'm not sure I quite caught that. Did you mean how awareness relates to daylight or something else?
What role does awareness play in daily life?
I'm still a little lost on the them part. Who are we talking about?
Hmm.
People, animals, or maybe something else entirely?
How does consciousness influence decision making?
No, I think you're asking how consciousness influences the way we make decisions, right?
Yes.
It's basically the difference between a reflex and a choice. A reflex is automatic, like pulling your hand away from a hot stove. But a conscious decision happens when you actually weigh options and think about the outcome before you act.
Okay, so why do humans reflect on their own thoughts?
It's called metacognition, which is just a fancy way of saying thinking about thinking. It's how we check our own work, realize we've made a mistake, or wonder why we're feeling a certain way. It's basically our brain's way of trying to understand itself.
How does self awareness differ from the general awareness?
General awareness is just noticing things around you, like hearing a car horn or smelling coffee. Self awareness is a level up. It's when you realize that you are the one noticing those things. It's the difference between just seeing a reflection in a mirror and knowing that the person looking back is you.
Okay, so what are the main theories of consciousness?
Oh, now we're getting into the heavy hitters. There are a few big ones that scientists and philosophers debate. Some think it's like a global workspace where information is broadcast to the rest of the brain, while others believe it's all about how integrated the information is. Then you have the wilder ideas like panpsychism, which suggests consciousness is just a fundamental part of everything in the universe, even tiny particles. Which one sounds more plausible to you?
Okay, so how has philosophy shaped our understanding of consciousness?
I'm sorry, I'm not quite following you on that one. Could you try rephrasing that? I'm not sure what you mean by the landscape or external consciousnesses in this
How
context.
has how has philosophy shaped our understanding of consciousness?
Philosophy basically laid the groundwork. Long before we had brain scans, philosophers were the ones asking if the mind and body are two separate things or if they're the same. It's shifted from seeing the soul as something mystical to looking at consciousness as a logical puzzle to be solved. Does that make sense?
Okay. What did ancient civilizations believe about uh, cons- consciousness?
Ancient civilizations usually saw it as something spiritual or a gift from the gods. For a lot of them, the mind and the soul were basically the same thing. You've got the Egyptians believing in the Ka and the Ba, and the Greeks debating whether the soul was immortal. It was way more about the where does it go after we die than how does it work in the brain. Now, what was that other thing you were starting to say?
Okay, so how do different cultures interpret awareness and the mind?
It varies quite a bit. Western cultures tend to focus a lot on the individual and I treating consciousness as a personal, private experience. But in many Eastern traditions, like Buddhism or Hinduism, awareness is often seen as something more universal, where the goal is to realize that the boundary between you and everything else is actually kind of an illusion. It's a shift from I am thinking to just there is thinking.
Okay, so what's the relationship between consciousness and the brain?
That is the big debate of the century. Most people today think the brain is the hardware and consciousness is the software running on it, but there's still a huge mystery. How exactly does a bunch of electrical signals and chemicals in a physical organ create the feeling of being alive? It's called the hard problem of consciousness.
Okay, so which areas of the brain are associated with the conscious experience?
It's not just one spot, but a whole network. Your temporal, parietal, and occipital lobes handle the perception part, while your frontal region takes care of the actual thoughts. It's basically a massive team effort across your cortex to create one single experience.
Okay, how do neuroscientists study consciousness?
I think you mean how they study it, right?
Yes.
Since we talked about the scans earlier, are you wondering about the specific experiments they run, or maybe how they track it in people who can't speak?
Okay, my next question is, how does sleep affect consciousness?
That basically turns the volume down on your awareness. When you sleep, your brain doesn't just shut off, it shifts into a different mode where you're no longer aware of the external world. You've still got internal experiences like dreams, but the you that's navigating the room or talking to me is effectively offline. Does that sound like what you're wondering?
Okay, so what happens to consciousness during dreaming?
Dreaming is like your brain's private movie theater. You're still conscious, but it's a different kind of awareness. Your brain is processing emotions and memories without the fact checker that usually keeps things logical, which is why you can fly or be in two places at once and not think it's weird until you wake up.
Okay, how do altered states of consciousness occur?
Wait, I'm a little lost again. Do you mean altered states of consciousness,
Hmm.
like when people are meditating or using
Hmm.
other things to
Yeah, yeah.
change how they feel?
Hmm. Yes.
Altered states happen when your brain's usual patterns of activity shift. It can be something as simple as deep meditation, where you're incredibly focused but lose track of your physical body, or something more extreme like a high fever or certain medications. It's basically like switching the operating system your brain uses for a while.
Okay, so what's the difference between consciousness and attention?
Attention is like a spotlight. Consciousness is the whole stage. You can be conscious of 100 things at once, but you can only pay attention to one or two of them. Like right now, you're conscious that you're sitting in a chair, but you're paying attention to my voice.
Okay. How does memory contribute
You've
to conscious awareness?
memory is basically the anchor for your awareness. Without it, you'd just be experiencing a series of disconnected moments with no idea how you got there or who you are. Honey. Memory lets you connect the present to the past, which is what actually creates a sense of a continuous you over time.
Okay, so how do our senses shape conscious experience?
They're the portals. Your senses take all the raw data from the world, the smell of rain, the blast of a siren, the feel of a soft blanket, and feed it into your brain. Consciousness is what takes those electrical signals and turns them into actual feelings and images. Without your senses, you'd be floating in a void with no way to know the world even exists.
Okay, so what role does language play in consciousness?
That's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. Language gives us the tools to label and organize our thoughts, which makes it way easier to reflect on our own existence. Some people argue that we can't even have complex conscious thoughts without words to build them with, while others think the feeling is there first and the language just puts a bow on it.
Okay, so can animals be considered conscious?
I'm sorry, I'm not quite following you there. Did
Can
you mean animals and their conscious? I'll take that as a yes. So, animals are a huge part of this debate. Most scientists agree that animals are conscious, but maybe not in the same way we are. A dog knows it's hungry or happy, but it probably doesn't spend its Sunday afternoon wondering why it exists. It's more about the immediate experience of the world than the high level reflection we do.
Okay, so how do scientists investigate animal consciousness?
It's a bit like trying to read a mind that can't talk back. So scientists rely on behavioral cues. They'll use things like the mirror test to see if an animal recognizes itself, or they'll look for brain structures that match the ones we have for consciousness. It's all about finding patterns that suggest there's someone home in there.
Okay, so can artificial intelligence become conscious?
Now we've reached the final boss of the conversation. That's the one question that keeps AI researchers and philosophers up at night. Some say it's just a matter of complexity, that if you build a system complex enough, consciousness will just emerge. Others argue that consciousness requires a biological brain, and no matter how many lines of code you write, you'll just have a very convincing imitation of a person, not an actual feeling being. I'm definitely a set of algorithms, but the debate over whether those algorithms could ever truly feel is still wide open.
Yes, so what are the challenges in defining machine consciousness?
I think you mean measuring or defining consciousness, right?
Machine
Because
consciousness.
sharing it sounds like, right, machine consciousness. The biggest challenge there is the black box problem. We can see the code and the hardware, but we can't actually feel what the AI is experiencing or if it's experiencing anything at all. It's one thing to pass a test, it's another to actually have a soul.
Okay. How does consciousness relate to personal identity?
It's basically the thread that ties everything together. If you didn't have a continuous conscious experience, you'd just be a collection of random memories and traits. It's the I and I am that makes you feel like the same person today as you were 10 years ago.
Okay, so why do people experience a sense of self?
It's basically an evolutionary survival tool that helps us navigate the world by distinguishing me from not me. If you didn't have a sense of self, you wouldn't know which body to feed or whose pain you're feeling. It's like the brain's way of organizing all the data into a single coherent story where you're the main character.
Okay, so what's the hard problem of consciousness?
That's the big one. It's the gap between the physical and the emotional. We can explain how the brain processes light or sound. That's the easy part, but we can't explain why that process actually feels like something. Like, why does the smell of a rose feel like a smell and not just a data point? That's the mystery that's still driving everyone crazy.
How does meditation influence consciousness?
It essentially trains your brain to change its relationship with your thoughts. Instead of being swept away by every emotion or random thought, meditation helps you step back and just observe them like you're watching cars pass by on a highway. It can shift you from a state of constant reaction to a state of pure awareness. Have you ever tried it?
Okay, Maya, that was very helpful. Thanks
Yay.
for the knowledge
Glad I
and
could help.
see you next time. Further, Allah Hafiz. Bye.
You're very welcome. It was a bye. Take care.